Okay, Alex. Very important question as we approach the start of the stream. The mic is live, by the way. Uh, I've just thought of a great intro joke, but of course it's the season premiere, very important, beloved show. It's quite good. And the joke is kind of a jab at the episode, right? And so do I want to make the kind of jab at the episode in the intro, or is that too much? Is that gonna throw people away too much?
Do it anyways.
No, wait, that's not it. Good morning, Samoa, and welcome to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 1, The Broken Circle, where I can only assume that the titular circle in question is episodes of TOS, where today...
Is that entire conversation in the intro?
Yes, that whole thing was the intro. Wait...
I was a pawn in your scheme!
As I was talking about it, I was selling myself more and more on making the joke. Yes, where...
I hate you so much!
I told you the mic was live.
I didn't register that this was gonna be the intro to the stream!
Fun fact before I start making it quieter. This engine hum you've been listening to. Not this engine hum, this bridge ambience. The concurrent viewer left, I'm not surprised. Worth it. Paramount, like a week or so ago, released actual, official next generation warp core ambience for 3 hours. Please do that for everything, because this is the Discovery Bridge ambience from the 23rd century. It's the only modern ambience I can find. Please, it'd be so useful. But anyway, yes, welcome back, everyone, to Strange New Worlds. Look at me, there we go. I've got my new little character, which hopefully Carol Kane changes her badge, and I don't have to redraw it a bit. No, it's good. It's just her badge was a little different in this episode. But when I sent you reference images, they probably just change it, because when she becomes a part of the crew, she gets an actual badge. It's fine, Alex, it's fine. But, yeah, God, that got completely derailed. Yes. God, this is fantastic. This is an amazing. Keep this in. We're gonna keep this in. Broken Circle, the first episode in a while. That's why it's so bad. It's been 10 months since I've done one of these. I think, in general, this was a pretty good episode. This was a solid, foundation, a good premise. It had a good episode. There's a problem with Strange New Worlds. Dang it, we're just gonna go straight in. Where it's very popular, of course. And I'm not gonna say I don't like Strange New Worlds. I think I do like Strange New Worlds, but it has to be a think. And when I do these reviews, often there's a bit of good, there's a bit of bad. I kind of look at both sides of them. And people, I generally try and start with the good, and it's very difficult when my opening thoughts are a bit mixed. And it's worse for Stranger Worlds, because people tend to bounce off with any kind of criticism towards those great shows. The ones that they think are great, at least. But this was quite an interesting episode. Because, as I said, I think it's a great start for an episode. There's this dilithium planet, you're building off the stuff that happened in Discovery, and you're like, hey, they want to spark a war between the Federation and Klingons for profit. Brilliant, good premise. You gotta figure out what's happening. That all was great. But also, I think this was a great 35-40 minute episode. It's weird, you have this section before they get to the planet. Which this is the high-level view, of course. We start with the high-level view. Way up to, here, where they're kind of stealing the Enterprise. This is sort of the setup, so yeah, 15 minutes. Then you've got a good bit of premise. I'll just call this the episode. You've got the episode kind of happening till here, actually, about 10 minutes of episode. You've got... 10 minutes of that fight scene, and then you've got more episode. That I just want to break that down as we talk about the different parts. So you got premise, episode, fight, episode. That's kind of how we're gonna dissect that, and now we know terminology. Fix your mic! Oh no, what's happening to my mic? Nova Omega, what is happening to my mic? I think all my audio's set up, but I can't hear my voice back. Will I wait for that? Jack's Law, yeah, I'm not sure why I did not like it.
Do you want me to check the stream?
It was okay, but I did not like it even though I wanted to. No, I wouldn't say that. I know why the parts that didn't work for me didn't work, and I know why the parts that did work for me did. I think this was a very solid... mic seems fine to me. Okay, cool.
I just listened to the stream. Your mic sounds fine to me.
I think what it is some people don't hear it, some people do. There's a little hum, that I have spent years trying to figure out. Oh, it's the ambient noise. Yeah, that's what it is. You have no idea the length I've spent trying to fix this ambient noise. I think I need a new mic. Oh, thank you, so much better. Oh, maybe my cable. Okay, I'm not gonna say I didn't do anything. I'm gonna say I fixed the problem forever, and you're gonna believe it. And then the placebo will fix the problem. Yeah, no, I think the reason is this episode didn't start off great. Let's start off... I remember the joke I was going to start this episode with now. This episode asks the bold question of how many times can you steal the Starship Enterprise before there needs to be an intervention? Like, from our audience perspective...
I'm sorry?
This crossed the line where I kind of...
I feel like the answer is 1.
As the audience, I had to... Like, you'd think that. I had to kind of sit back and go, yeah, like... I think we've kind of stolen the Enterprise too many times now where we should have... It should be a bit of a thing. Like, there should be consequences. But, like, in universe, I'm pretty sure this is the first time anyone has ever stolen not just the Enterprise, but, like, a Federation starship. So...
It's not even just stealing, it's kidnapping. There are people on there.
Well, I don't know. This is unprecedented, though, so I'm not gonna blame the episode for that. Because this is the first time. But, like, from a meta perspective, I'm like, you know, I think that you've done it too many times. Like, I was thinking afterwards, because he even says at the end, like, next time this happens, Spock, and there better not be a next time. It'll be your commission. I'm like, yeah, that circle I mentioned they broke. The menagerie, you think maybe someone would have at least pulled Spock aside and been, look, Spock, this is the second time you've stolen the Enterprise, and this behavior just needs to stop. But except that's a lie. Actually, no, that's true. The third time he stole the Enterprise was his Ponfar, which, you know, he's not in his full state of mind. You know, I guess you could kind of excuse that one. But I don't know, it's the third time, like, you pull Spock aside and be like, now, Spock, I know I said last time you stole the Enterprise that this was the last time, but, you know, you weren't yourself. It was your Ponfar. We're gonna let it slide. And then, of course, the fourth time he stole the Enterprise in the Wrath...
Did I just hear the words, that's the fourth time?
No. Spock didn't steal the Enterprise the fourth time. That was Kirk and everyone else stole the Enterprise for Spock. So actually, he's completely scot-free in that... that fourth
Spock
time.
Specifically has stolen or had the Enterprise stolen for him 4 times.
Yeah. What I will, no, Spock has stolen the Enterprise 3 times. But the Enterprise has been stolen, well, depending on if you, like, count all the Enterprises, at least 4. Probably more.
Why is the majority of the stolen Enterprises from Spock?
It is an interesting question, actually, that, we may have to consider, but...
How has he not lost his ranking for insubordination?
I mean, they do kind of give a good enough explanation right at the end for me that, like, you know, I kind of need Spock. And, of course, Starfleet has always been a results-oriented, thinking organization. But I think...
Spock's always been an organized thinking organization?
The main thing to me...
Did you just call Spock an organization?
I think I said Starfleet has.
You said Spock. Chat.
But
did Nathan say Spock or Starfleet?
The main thing is that the whole reason they have to steal the Enterprise is because Leon is in danger. They want to rescue her, and Starfleet won't allow it. I knew Spock would steal the Enterprise going into this episode, so I was kind of wondering if they could justify that. Whoops! I just broke this chip bag clip. Put that aside. Like, it felt a little weak. You kind of had Pike say it before he did it, like, oh, I'm doing this because it's right. And it's not difficult to logic your way into, we need to steal the Enterprise because Leon says there's an existential threat to the Federation. But, when he stole the Enterprise for Pike in TOS, it was such a big thing, and there was an incredibly deep connection between the two characters that I don't think you really have in Strange New Worlds, but it was good enough for me. The main thing is, I've forgotten what the main thing... Oh, yeah. Why can't Leon just send a message to the Enterprise about exactly what is happening? It seems like the only reason she can't is because they need the sequence where they steal the Enterprise. And I think the only two reasons I can think of for stealing the Enterprise are, first off, runtime, which is kind of the cynical explanation. But secondly, and by the way, you could chop off, 7 minutes of runtime and you're still a full minute episode. You don't need this whole stealing the Enterprise sequence. The second option is so that they can't contact Starfleet while they're at the Klingon planet. They kind of have to make these, kind of like Balance of Terror. They can't contact Starfleet. There's the potential for war. And, it's kind of those, it's all on Captain Spock. It's all on the one ship to figure out what to do with no help, which is, a great storytelling thing for a lot of episodes. But I think you could pretty easily write yourself around both of those problems. As I said, runtime, not really an issue, especially if you're replacing it with something else. Maybe it's how they want to introduce Carol Kane as well. You could have Leon's transmission be cut off quick. It's cut off abruptly. Maybe she had limited power on her long-range subspace transceiver. There we go. I've just written you out of that problem. And then, that there's more of a reason why Starfleet wouldn't want to risk it, but Spock and crew would. As for contacting Starfleet, already I've just given you a solution where you've stolen the Enterprise. But you could just say that comet they were in has some weird interference, so long-range communications don't work. So I felt it was kind of weak. It was all right as a sequence. There were some kind of cliched things oh, no one likes the repair crew touching their consoles or whatever. At this point, stealing the Enterprise has become a cliche. That's a bit of a problem. But also, I'll switch to something positive before I go on to the next little negative bit. Carol Kane is in this whole scene is absolutely fantastic. This is the highlight of the episode and almost makes stealing the Enterprise worth it on its own. This was an amazing choice. Absolutely incredible. I love the personality of the character. I love how she played it. I love how she's just yeah, I know what's going on. I literally teach a course in whatever warp core breaches. I love her attitude. I love at the end where we realize she just wants to do all this because she's immortal and that's really boring. Amazing. I like the concept of aliens that just lived on Earth as a homeworld and just went undiscovered till Enterprise. I love her character. I can see why people were excited about having Carol Kane in Star Trek now. I had never heard of her until that Star Trek Day announcement, but I'm very happy with my choice of thumbnail. for many reasons, even though I can no longer do that weird layering thing where the letters go in front of my hair, but not in front of my neck. Yes, my hair actually looks like that now, by the way. That's not just some random choice. But this was amazing. You better not Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, the chief engineer, because I want 20 seasons of I don't even remember her name, but we'll call her Carol Kane.
It's O'Brien.
Now I'm live, which is why I'm hesitating to say what I'm about to say, because it might be blasphemy. And we've only seen a little bit of Carol Kane. She could be awful in all the other episodes, but she might surpass O'Brien. Like,
oh no, I just heard something about engineering and warp,
oh,
and so
O'Brien is a great character, but Carol Kane is a great character. She's very much a character. And it's working. I'm absolutely loving it. I never really took to Hemmer too much. Like, he was fine. But I think a lot of the original that's it. This character is the first original character from Strange New Worlds I've actually latched onto, which is amazing. I think a lot of the Strange New Worlds interesting characters are the recurring ones. Yes, Una and Banga, Pike are functionally original characters. They weren't in a lot of TOS, but they're still not original characters. This is the first truly original one I've really just loved.
I like Whoopi Goldberg.
You haven't seen The Princess Bride? I'm sorry. It was not the first time I had seen Carol Kane in something. Is she the Miracle Man's wife, I think? No, you're right. I forgot about that.
Makes y'all feel better. I haven't seen The Princess Bride.
I haven't shown you it? I'm sure we saw it at, Riverfront Park or something.
No, we haven't gone to
I'm going to remedy that. But no, you're right. But to be fair...
no, we watched, Monty Python.
To be fair, if she is who I'm thinking of in The Princess Bride, that's not exactly a huge role. Jackslaw. Okay, I think, this is what is the... Okay, I think that is what it is. The show is about breaking the rules without consequences. We'll get to that. I still love Ortegas. Ortegas would be good if they kind of did anything with her other than cocky pilot. She hasn't had her episode yet, but Ortegas to me has always kind of been that cocky Tom Paris, Mayweather as if he had a character, kind of like pilot type. But to me, that's added to a larger complaint I have about Strange New Worlds, where they don't take the stakes seriously when they should, and it feels a little too casual in places. Not in the sense that, the complaint that's common that these shows are unprofessional. It's a different kind of casualness. But if I went over my fundamental problems with Strange New Worlds every episode, they'd all be 5 hours long. And I see a lot of familiar faces, so we'll bring them up as they become important. Carlos, well, I was not totally impressed. The Klingons, the majority of them, sounded too human. Interesting. We'll get to the Klingons at the end.
That's because humans are violent.
There was no true robustness in their voice. I see what you mean. Carol Kane has yet to surpass O'Brien persona. Oh, look, O'Brien is he the second most common appearances of any? I think he might be. I
like Scotty.
I think it's Worf, then O'Brien, but I mean, we'll see. I love her so far. That's the point. I'm not a witch. I'm your wife. Yeah, that was Carol Kane. She's great.
What?
That's a Princess Bride quote. But yeah, let's get into the other thing. Is I said this, a lot of you might have missed it because I think it was a trailer analysis or something. I said I think Strange New Worlds on average breaks more than one episode per episode. So, to preface that, because again, that sounds like a big criticism, when Discovery broke canon, What it would do is it would turn the ship around and perform a holdo maneuver on the entire timeline. Yes, a Star Wars reference in my Star Trek review, deal with it. It would kind of like obliterate technology, Klingons, like a lot of things. But when Strange New Worlds breaks something, it's not like, oh, that Star Trek is ruined now. It's a lot of, especially as we're learning in the TOS watch-along, not even retconned. It's a lot of...
When it breaks it with love.
When you go back and watch, like, a TOS episode, you're like, oh, that conversation doesn't work anymore. Oh, that's weird. Oh, the menagerie is now really weird, because this is the second time
really
Spock has stolen the Enterprise. And the first time, someone literally told him, the next time you do this, you're going to lose your commission. And I don't think Spock is any more important then than he is now. Like, movie-era Spock? Sure. He could get away with a lot. But TOS-era Spock, I feel, is just as important, or rather unimportant, as he is now. Yeah, what was the other one that doesn't really work? I'll get on. There are some things that this episode made work better. I took notes. Let me glance a second. Yada, yada, yada. No, I might come up to it. But there were a few little things where it's like, oh, that episode... Like the Menagerie, which was part of my favorite multi-series arcs in the entire franchise, now is weird. Because no one brings up that, like, hey, Spock, you need to stop this behavior. Also, within this own episode... the Enterprise we've seen so far is a crew that in the first episode of Season 1, they violated the Prime Directive. The first officer is committed one of the worst crimes in the Federation, even if it's bogus. The Spock has just stolen the Enterprise, and the entire senior staff was behind this. Dr. M'Benga used the medical emergency transporter, a vital piece of equipment, to keep his daughter alive and, like, make it so you couldn't use it for actual medical emergencies. If I was Admiral April, I'd pull Pike and the entire senior staff aside and be, clearly there is a fundamental problem here, because this crew is breaking every rule in the books. Like, you could say... Well, every crew, like, breaks the rules in the books more than they should and gets away with it because they're main characters. Which, in a sense, is kind of true, but I feel like the frequency, especially right now, of rule breaking is something else. Like, when Kirk stole the Enterprise in the movies, there was an entire trial where, yes, the trial was basically to say, here's everything you've ever wanted, but there was still, like, it was a big deal. I don't know. So that's why the first part of the episode doesn't really work, and I think probably could have and should have been replaced with something else to, like, get Carol Kane on board and set the scene for what is a very good episode. I think I'm going to round out my talk about the stealing the ship portion of the video. Actually, sorry, I'm going to get to the comments, but I've forgotten some early stuff. Jack's Law, well, it's what builds stake, the stuff that you had to do, like Spock taking the ship. But as I gave the pitch, like, there are other ways to get there. Like, in an episode where you've set up your episode in a really dumb way, but it's a really good episode, I can enjoy the episode once we get there, but I'm going to spend the beginning going, wow, this was really dumb. The sort of TNG era, TNG Deep Space Nine Voyager, I think they have this a lot, where they will cite the Prime Directive as the reason they can't do something every time it doesn't make sense. And when it does make sense, they won't bring it up and they'll cite a completely stupid reason when the Prime Directive was just sitting there. But you have a good episode that follows. It's better if it all works, but it doesn't mean the whole thing's completely ruined if you kind of fumble your setup a bit. Let's see. It's okay that Starfleet let it slide, but if there's no overarching consequences, then they don't build to the story of the fans watching. Yes! That's the other thing, is when you let someone get away with something, you need to justify it, or there need to be consequences. That doesn't necessarily mean you're fired. Oh, sorry, I've remembered. Galileo 7. That episode, I'm pretty sure, was explicitly Spock's first command. Doesn't really work anymore, and it's really weird that he would see command the way that he does, specifically in that episode, after going through this. There we go. That was the other thing that didn't work. But yeah, I mean, Deep Space Nine, I think, was great at consequences. And, I mean, there are examples otherwhere. But, like, let's look at Worf. Worf did a lot of stuff where he went... Alex, you can cover your ears now. He did a lot of things.
What?
Just, yeah, exactly. Turn your volume up. Spoilers, turn your volume up.
Oh, okay.
He did a lot of things that, like, went against the Empire. He would come in favor a lot. He would leave, and he would actively make decisions like this. Like, I am going to go against my government, sometimes Starfleet, sometimes the Empire, sometimes whatever, and do what I think is right. And he had consequences. Like, you know, he's been expelled from the Empire like 2 or 3 times. He'd be welcomed back from other things. He'd be in weird middle states. His actions would have ripple effects on Alexander, on his brother. You know, Worf is like the best example of how you can do these consequences, but still keep your character. Like, none of this actually affected Worf's position on the Enterprise of Deep Space Nine. He always just fulfilled kind of the same role, unless we were talking about one of these Klingon episodes. There's the fact that it's a Vulcan in Starfleet and they want to keep him. Nowadays, I think we've retconned that out, rightfully so. That, like, yeah, there's tons of Vulcans in Starfleet. Oh my god, I thought of another problem. That's right, the fact that the crew are all criminals, we don't know it yet, or rather Starfleet doesn't, but M'Benga and Chapel, I think, also break that genetic engineering rule. Like, seriously, Starfleet needs an intervention on this ship. By god. During lore, Carlos, just for the record, Stranger Worlds is trying to wipe out the original TOS on purpose. I'm gonna challenge that hard. The era of writers of today is not that worldly from those 50 years ago. I think they're failing to do what they want. There was a great, there was an insightful interview with one of the head writers of Strange New Worlds recently. I wish I had it on me, but it was a fascinating look at how Strange New Worlds deals with canon. And he basically said they enjoy that kind of balance or tug between the existing canon and their new stories, which is a worrying sentence because it should not be a tug. And it's always at its best when it's not a tug. Look at Enterprise, and then look at Enterprise Seasons 3 and 4. Season 4 is the best season of Enterprise. Why? Because it complements the existing canon so much and builds off of it with its original stories. It's never a fight. It's always a dance. Like, it's always a compliment. But is kind of a backup of how he's like, they do believe in respecting canon, and they do think it's important. But to back that up, he gave the quote that was, there are a lot of things you can do with a big franchise like this. And I don't remember them, but he's basically then gave a big bullet point. I would call it a comprehensive list of every way a new show can, for lack of a better word, ruin, to whatever severity, totally destroy it or make like this one conversation a bit weird, ruin something in the older shows. And he then said, we do all of these. And I think the problem that I have with Stranger Worlds when it comes to canon is how they're balancing that. I guess that they have the balance in the first place. There are some things I will concede you do have to balance, mostly when it comes to, like, set design, maybe, or stuff like that. The Klingons, that are problems they've inherited, not problems they invented. But, yeah, I do think the writers either don't consider as much canon as we might, or they're just not very good at the balancing act they're trying. Carlos, just for the... Oh, wait, I did that one. Are any of the current writers of Stranger Worlds over mid-40s in age? pretty sure. Isn't Kurtzman... He's got, like, gray hair. I mean, Kurtzman's older. I think a lot of them are. A lot of them grew up. I don't know about the writers, but there are a lot of people who made, like, TNG to Enterprise Star Trek still working in Star Trek. Mike McMahon, of course. He's not Strange New Worlds, but he's older, and he grew up with Star Trek. But there's a difference in not respecting canon and failing to respect canon, which I think is an important distinction to make. But no, we did get in this episode a lot of setup for what I think is going to be big in this season, which feels weird in an episodic show. But, I mean, you've got 10 episodes. I guess the overarching stuff has to be a little more packed than back in TNG. But you clearly have set up for next episode. We can only have Una sitting around in a cell for so long. There was a line here I wanted to address where Una... I did write it down exactly. Una said, you're gonna go... the exact words were across the quadrant just to have, like, a door slammed in your face. And that she's like, that'll take whatever. Pike said, it's only 2.5 days in a shuttle, one of the new shuttles. And I'm just... I'm sorry, what? I'll accept that across the quadrant is probably a figure of speech. She doesn't literally mean 50,000 light years away. But, like, I did a quick Google. How long does it take to get from Earth to Vulcan? And it's about 4 to 6 hours. That's probably TNG time. I'm like, in what shuttle can you get anywhere that could be considered across the quadrant in 2.5 days? Like... I don't know, 100 light years away, maybe I would have let it slide, but, like, good lord. There was another one in Season 1, I just watched the premiere, where Pike on Earth calls Spock from Vulcan, and the Enterprise is at Earth, and he's like, I need you on the Enterprise, and Spock is like, oh, okay, I'll be there. And then we see Pike arrive on the Enterprise at Earth, and Spock is already there. I'm like, wait, whoa, what? Yeah, I'm not going to pretend the old stuff was perfect, Earth-Romulan border, but I don't know. That was just a line that I'm like, oh my god. Here, let's get into something... Look, it's not my fault if my positive stuff are 20 minutes in the episode. This storyline is a very interesting thing I was not expecting, because with this scene, they seem to be setting up a story that... in that Gorn episode, the one about murdering babies, Spock let kind of his emotions loose. He kind of let him out. And what they're saying is that's had an effect on him. He's basically kind of removed the emotional barriers that make Vulcans able to function because their emotions are so heightened. Bonus points, by the way, for actually mentioning that. That's going to make a great clip for a video one day. But this could be an absolutely fantastic arc. I've said it plenty of times before without justifying, because it is an incredibly deep dive topic. But I think the Vulcans are accidentally, and yes, literally every part of this is accidental, an amazing allegory or parallel for autism in the meta sense, in the in-universe sense, in the meta-meta sense, where what you just thought when I said Vulcans are autistic is probably a stereotype, overly simplified thing that is wrong in both the canonical sense and in the real-world sense of what autism is, which makes them an amazing autism allegory. And this idea of Spock, in this case accidentally, made the choice to open up his emotions, and now he can't close them again, and he has to learn how to deal with that, is amazing. I mean, that is basically the story that the Vulcans have been going through for 1,000 years until Discovery. And that is very much rather the personal experience of mine. It was not an accidental choice, but it was a choice I made without being able to fully understand what that would bring. And then you can't close those doors. Once those barriers come down, they stay down. Here's the negative. If this was any other show, I would be incredibly excited for it. But when it comes to the Vulcans, right? Classic Star Trek, TOS a little less so, but classic Star Trek was very good at describing the Vulcans well and showing them poorly. Tuvok, Spock, you need to take Logic 101. Spock, you also need remedial lessons. By God, you two are awful. That's not to say it's all bad. They describe it a lot. There's a lot of the themes of you can logic yourself into anything. True. There's a lot of themes of that, how Vulcans use that to basically make their society corrupt and to do bad things. Great. The other series, not all the modern series have touched Vulcans, but Discovery, early Discovery, fails to describe Vulcans and show them. Late Discovery, we've finally done it. 50, 60 years on, we finally learned how to show Vulcans what Vulcans are. Vulcans understand them. Bravo. The Vulcan president, it's beautiful. 10 out of 10. It's the utopia. It's the future liberals want. The Strange New Worlds, it's interesting because it absolutely fails to show Vulcans. It's the worst, easily. I don't think it's attempted a description of Vulcans yet. It's I don't know. It's like, but I don't have the faith in them to actually do that arc in a way that I'd find satisfying as an autistic person. I probably should have prefaced this discussion with that in case you didn't know it. And I'm just noticing that our curtains kind of look like the Andorian symbol, how I remember it, but that's beside the point. But yeah, if this was Discovery season 5, I'd be through the moon. I'm gonna be like, oh hell yeah, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be an entire chapter in my future video about Vulcans and autism. But I mean, I'm not gonna judge the book before it comes. Ethan Peck as well. That's unfair to say Ethan Peck. I've not liked this portrayal of Spock for a lot of reasons I've been into before. We have a rule on this channel. We don't talk about Spock. It's like Bruno, except we don't talk about it. Well, actually, no, it's exactly like Bruno. We talk about him quite a bit. But, I mean, this will be something to watch as it gets developed. God, where are we in chat? They are not balanced. They are not beholden to the legacy of Star Trek as a third-party license. They have been it's Secret Hideout. Okay, they've been borrowing past materials without giving due credit to past writers. I mean, I think every Star Trek still starts with based on Star Trek created by Gene Roddenberry. I don't know about credit. That feels a bit weird in a franchise. This episode ends with a dedication to Nichelle Nichols. Like, I don't know. We've disagreed on this a lot, though, about, I think we both agree that they're, at some level, failing to respect canon. We just disagree on the motives. Engineers should not be allowed to watch Star Trek. It's always about the ships. I suppose I'm technically an engineer, but of the software variety. That feels weird. I feel like we haven't talked about the ships a lot. But I do own hundreds of Star Trek ships, so you know. I wish I was wrong, Jack, but the comparison and approach was very palpable. Blah. Well, I watched it and did not like it. I was not sure why. Okay, let's move on to the good stuff. Where does the good stuff start? Here. By the way, really good use of their... Hang on. Star Wars Mandalorian VFX style name. Their stagecraft. There we go. It's no longer a Mandalorian room. Their stagecraft with those... God damn it. With those Mandalorian rooms, you know, those big screens, the green screen replacement. Very well done in this. I didn't notice it a few times, like this scene in particular, but I think that's just because it's a new technology, and it's been a problem before. But, like, this is outside. It's kind of a forest area. This is exactly when you'd want to use your stagecraft. Is that really the name of it? I don't know. I'll look it up later. This was great. I want this as a cosplay. I've just caught that out of the corner of my eye. But yeah, this is great use. Even down here, when they're in the mines, whatever. Like, it makes sense. Like, yeah, decades of dilithium mining. I think they're learning how to use it, and they're not playing with their toys as much anymore. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a transition point as the industry adopts it, but I want to give kudos, because this is all very well done. And it's not too fantastical. I mean, these rock things are a little fantastical, but it kind of mimics the trees and stuff. You're getting the forest vibe, so it works. By the way, Spock has been dumb to the point that folks, especially humans, have been shown to him and how to do things. Carlos, we love Spock. We love Spock on this channel. It's true. I've got one of these characters of me as Spock. It's true. But Spock was a fucking idiot in TOS. He really was. He was an absolute moron. There are a lot of good things about him, like his ability to understand things that he disagrees with without just going like absolute hatred and stuff, but he did not understand logic. He was a moron, and he's much better left remembered than watched, because we can remember Spock for what his reputation was, is a very intelligent and amazing Vulcan, because he wasn't. He really wasn't. TOS is much best left remembered after time. It really is. Well, he's like a superhero, Carlos. It's hard for the writers need to do that, to do their job sometimes. No, I disagree. He's not a superhero. He's not supposed to be. He's just supposed to be logical and intelligent. And it's possible to write a logical, intelligent character. I think they actually do. I can't think of a single instance where I can fault this version of Spock's logic. I can't think of many... No, he does. Like, even with the Klingon, he kind of sits down. I can see, like, here. It is a bit naive for him not to see the possibility that the Klingons could construe them destroying their own ship is a cover-up. But it's not illogical. I mean, it's just it's a faulty assumption. It's a lack of experience, a lack of emotions that he doesn't deal with. It's a logical throughput just with an incorrect conclusion, because your starting premise is wrong. Yeah, I thought we might disagree with that, but pop on for one of our... you know what, Carlos? If you want a discussion on this, wait till my watch-along of Galileo 7, and I will spend a good hour ripping Spock to shreds. Yeah. Although I guess Spock is a superhero in a way. He's got super strength as a Vulcan. He's got some level of telepathy. But no, I like what I've called the episode, jumping over the fight scenes, because we're getting there. As I said, I think this is a great premise for the episode. I think a lot of it works. I like following it. This was a good episode of Star Trek. I'm a little disappointed in the Klingons. After the glory that is what the soldiers of the Empire looked like, I kind of got the impression we'd be seeing a lot of them. But in these sort of casual wear, which it's been, I mean, it might look a lot like casual wear we've seen in the past. I'll admit to not really being able to remember. But there's something about it. I don't know, it feels a bit too just kind of like I could go to the store and buy this. There's just something about it where it doesn't look bad. They haven't ruined Klingons. Like, no, not by any stretch of the imagination. And they're largely free to do whatever with casual wear, because especially in this era, we haven't seen it. We don't see a lot of casual wear. But I was just kind of hoping for the glory, the perfection that is this. Like, oh, we'll get to that. And I was a little disappointed. It makes sense. They're not soldiers of the Empire. Absolutely understandable. I mean, as I said, I want what Hura is wearing in this episode now. But I don't know if I really have too much to say, other than it was a good episode. The weakest part is the scene where I don't understand why Leon couldn't just tell the Federation what was happening. But that's a problem with the premise. Like, if we accept that we need to steal the Enterprise to get here, that's not a problem with this scene. You could have provided a better explanation, but yeah, this was a good episode. It's kind of, I guess, maybe you could say middle of the road. Because it wasn't the focus. I don't know it, but I liked it. There was real promise in this episode, and I think they kind of had this idea right here, and either they didn't have enough time to fill an hour, or they were trying to fit too much setup for future episodes. The stuff with the Gorn, trying to introduce Carol Kane, maybe that bogged it down a little bit. I might be interested to know, but I liked a lot of this episode. Yeah. Spock was of two worlds. He had to prove to his father his path to the Academy was far better than the Science Institute of Vulcan. I mean, I think they probably got better by the movies. Like, yeah, I mean, Spock's a great story. It's just a shame the writers didn't know how to write logic. It really is. Like, that's why Spock's endured so much, because he's a great story, but, yeah, he talks, most of what he says is absolute nonsense. There was a great study someone did, I wish I could find this article, where she basically wanted to know how good Spock's logic was, and the way she did this is she watched through TOS and recorded every assertion Spock made, how confident he was in that assertion, and then whether he was right or wrong. I disagree with maybe that method of, is your logic good? But, the interesting conclusion is that she found Spock was not only overwhelmingly wrong, but the more confident he was something was going to happen, the less likely it was to happen. And the less confident he was, the more likely it was to happen. It's truly amazing. Like, they almost write Spock specifically to be disproven, which, similar to the Worf effect. Worf's supposed to be super strong, but he looks weak because everyone kicks his butt. Spock's supposed to be super logical, but he looks illogical because they keep using Spock being wrong is like some sort of surprise factor. It's interesting. But they also do tie it in, like, somehow his lack of emotions is impeding his logic, which is a flawed look, but this isn't TOS. I could talk so much about how bad Spock is. I could make a whole video about it, and everyone would hate it, because it's, why is Spock so bad? I've tossed the idea of a video where the title is, most Star Trek ships are bad. I don't think I can make it, though, because the title is most Star Trek ships are bad. God, yeah. Yes, Carlos, perfect transition. That entire fight scene was totally dragged out, literally. Yes, I'm not opposed to the fight scene. It was all very well done. Technically, that long of a fight scene, it was well choreographed, it was well shot. I always knew what was happening. I had a great sense of space. That scene where it went upside down a little bit, that was weird. That didn't work for me. But everything else, that was beautiful against the sort of marvelly quick cut that we get so much. I think part of this episode was built around having a very technically impressive fight scene, which also brought it down and detracted from the otherwise a good episode. Because first off, it's weird to have a Star Trek episode where like a quarter of it is a silent fight scene. That's like almost the antithesis of Star Trek's like, quick, we're under attack. Okay, we'll have a meeting at 4, and then we'll have a brief intermission, and we'll get together at 5 after some coffee to figure out what to do about the situation. You know, I don't think that's inherently wrong. I think it could be a worthwhile experiment, and I might be like, yeah, you know, it was worth trying. And I don't think it worked. I think if this fight scene was like 5 minutes long, I wouldn't have a problem. I think it's serving a purpose in that it is setting up this weird genetic engineering stuff I'll get into. It's setting up some trauma with Mbenga that we're going to get into. It's doing a lot of legwork, and I think 5 minutes 5 minutes or so is a good amount of the scene to establish what you need to, get the fight scene that you want, still keep it engaging. Like, a fight scene makes sense. Starfleet, it was all non-lethal. Starfleet security is supposed, well, I guess this is medical, but Starfleet's supposed to be, like, one of the best trained security forces there is. I know some of you might laugh. That's like when Obi-Wan said, only Imperial stormtroopers are this accurate. But, if we start showing them as actually capable, yeah, that's good. But it was just too long. And I think as well a Star Trek audience is probably less likely to engage with a super long fight scene. If this was like Fast and the Furious, like, sure, go ahead. But I think what we've learned from this experiment is that Star Trek shouldn't have 10-minute fight scenes. Like, yeah, it was just a little too long. But, it's all well lit. It's all amazingly well done. It is a very good 10-15-minute fight scene. The problem is that it's a 10-15 minute. Like, that's the problem. I felt like the Doctor was a better Vulcan in this episode. He looked at how nothing changes, but he did not need it to let decide who he is in his moment. And Banga's a great character, yeah. And Banga's probably a good example of an intelligent, logical character. If I was writing a Vulcan, I would include more logic. But I mean, another problem I have with Vulcans is they're constantly like, oh, well, logically, we should do this and this. And it's like, just because you're a Vulcan doesn't mean that every fifth word out of your mouth has to be logic. It doesn't mean you have to vocalize your entire logical throughput for every little decision. Like, but, it's like, yeah, I'd write him a little differently. I'd lean into the logic a bit more if he was Vulcan. But no, Vulcan is, and Banga's a great character. And even Chapel. Like, Chapel's much more emotionally driven. But Chapel's a great example. Like, I mean, these are Starfleet officers. Every single Starfleet officer should be a great example of how to write an intelligent, logical character. Because they're Starfleet. The mere fact that they've graduated from the academy should make you an intelligent, logical person. So yeah, I mean, it's no surprise, really. The nurse and the doctor are not security. I know, but everyone gets a bit of combat training. They've just been through a war, and they doped. So, I think, as much as I, like, fundamentally disagree with it, I think we're going with the in-universe kind of explanation that the genetic engineering, superior ability breeds superior ambition. So inherently, the genetic engineering will make you more aggressive. And it's a bit finicky, like, you're not going to genetically engineer martial art knowledge into you, but I think with that context that I'm going to assume they've become augments. It works for me. They're Starfleet, They've just been through the Klingon War. They survived the Klingon War. Why not? I will say that it's an interesting thing to go through this. What I'm going to assume, it might not be genetically engineering, but especially next to the Una plotline, especially in the 23rd century, like, I said in season 1 for one of the episodes, it was very unusual for the entire crew, except Leon, to be, like, totally okay with genetically engineered and think it was, like, a stupid rule. This kind of justifies it a bit more with when M'Benga and Chapel are clearly involved in something, like, previously. Maybe a little contrived that they're all on the ship with the one, like, augment in the fleet. But, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where this one goes, because obviously you can only do so much with the augment, like the getting past the genetic engineering stigma in the 23rd century. It's a plot line I've wanted for so long. I'm baffled they put it in Strange New Worlds, because I'd love to see us come past that. But it's just something I'm going to have to watch, I think. Yes, action over words sometimes. That's why the Doctor felt Vulcan. Or why Spock shouldn't act more like as a human Vulcan. To feel the weight of it, human, and will still be good. All this stuff about Spock dealing with his humanity and his Vulcan side. I agree. This is Spock's character. This is Spock's arc that he went through beautifully from TOS through not just Undiscovered Country, through The Next Generation, through the reboot movies, like his entire life, through Discovery, 32nd Century, where we see the results of unification, his efforts. But he went through this arc from TOS through what I've just said, through his entire life. Having any kind of development of his humanity before, what is it? For God, where no one has gone before. Thank you. Breaks that. Like in Discovery, where he's breaking down into tears because Burnham is leaving, and he's vowing to explore his emotions and learn his human side, does not match up with the man who's playing chess and goes, annoyance. Ah, yes, one of your human emotions. Like, I'm learning in my watch through of TOS that Spock shows more emotion than I recall in the early days. In a meta sense, that's probably because Leonard Nimoy hasn't quite worked out how he wants to play the character. Or maybe the writers haven't. It's kind of hard as a Vulcan, I've heard, to learn to unact, basically. 'Cause with a Vulcan, you really do kind of have to unlearn acting, is how I've heard it described a lot by like Tim Russ and some of the other big Vulcans. But it doesn't work because Spock's arc was how Kirk and Bones and that kind of Enterprise crew got him to help reconcile his humanity. It was kind of his first friendships, his first explanations. Like, yes, there was some clear connection with Pike, but I always got the sense that Pike was some sort of exception. There was some deep, unspoken connection between the two under the captaincy. And we have this stuff, when you have him, like, explicitly having feelings for Chapel, and what was always a very one-sided relation, or something he was against. Like, a lot of this early stuff in the arc breaks down. If Strange New Worlds took place between the last TOS episode and the first movie, yeah, I think I'd buy it. I don't think I'd have my complaints, because you would have a more emotionally aware Spock. You might have to tone some things down a bit at the start, but you could develop Spock. You could have these developments where Spock is exploring his emotions. Like, in this episode, Spock's emotional barriers have come down. Unless something catastrophic comes up in the future episode, which, like, TOS doesn't work anymore, because Spock has his emotional barriers. Spock has all that in place. This Spock, I can't see. The Spock that made the promise to Michael Burnham isn't gonna intentionally put those back up. Like, the only way he works in my head still, the only way I can reconcile pre-TOS Spock with everything after, is that in the crew change from Pike to Kirk, a lot of the crew change, and annoyingly less and less are changing. But through some danger of leaking information about Discovery and what happened to it, Spock makes an active choice to wipe his memory of Michael Burnham so that doesn't spread through mind melds, and in such loses all of his emotional growth, and he essentially reverts to his childlike Vulcan that literally doesn't know the first thing about emotion, because that's the Spock that we see in TOS. This is why we don't talk about Spock, for one, but this is why Ethan Peck's Spock has never worked for me. And it could in the season 1 finale, when they write lines for 2260 Spock, not just the ones that Leonard Nimoy actually spoke, but the ones they wrote. They nailed it. That's Spock. Ethan Peck acted it. The writers wrote it. He was believable in an instant after 2 seasons of absolute hatred to the character. I bought it instantly. And so it's so frustrating to see them, because that's what it is. It's an active choice not to write the TOS Spock. And it's not working for me. It's breaking a lot of the character to the point where I can only reconcile it by functionally saying that it never happened. I'm not. I'm saying that he doesn't remember it, which is like the laziest retcon possible, but yeah. I'd give Stranger World so many props if it somehow managed to fix Spock in the last few seasons, but still it would mean that I have to go through so much before we get there. But they make it about rules, and I think I read that one. Ethan Peck is markedly more good-looking. I don't know. He's not my type. Although I did notice when I watched the season 1 premiere again that they got rid of Spock's chest hair. I remember shirtless TOS Spock. Like, that dude had chest hair, and they got rid of it. What the heck, guys? Like, this is the respect to canon I demand. No. Well, Vulcan's more culture, a race, rights teachings. Yeah, I don't like kind of depictions of Vulcan. I'm gonna say in the modern shows, but with the caveat that I don't quite remember depictions of Vulcan outside of Enterprise. I don't know. I feel they lean too heavily into that sort of cultured, artsy society that it makes a lot of their cities look non-functional. But I don't know. You could make it work. You'll find there are a lot of things in Star Trek I like that I've never liked the depictions of. Starfleet Academy, I like. Not once liked a depiction of the Academy. The Borg, I quite like. They've gone downhill ever since Q-Who. It's an interesting. Spock, I love. Absolute idiot. They never did him right in TOS. Like, it's an interesting... it's interesting sometimes how these things work. I find those flagons at thrift stores all the time, also Octogeno mugs. My uncle has, from the 80s, TNG, Captain Picard cups. I can't wait to inherit from him. Just steal them off his daughters. Stranger Worlds is not fixing Spock. You can kiss that goodbye. I don't know. I think they try something. I don't think they'll succeed, but I think they'll try something. If they know it's going to end, and they know in advance... I think they might try something. Like, maybe Spock retreats in his shell, because all the... Well, it doesn't make sense if all the new people leave, because, like, most of the TOS crew is in this show now. Another complaint I have about Strange New Worlds, but, this is why my Strange New Worlds videos aren't popular, is I think it has some fundamental problems. And, in episodic television, what you remember looking back is the connective tissue. That's kind of what defines the series as a whole. And fundamental things are the connective tissue. So when, like, most of my problems are fundamental and most of what I like is one-off, it means my descriptions and memory of Stranger Worlds are way more negative than the show actually deserves. Because the show does not deserve the negativity I give it. The things I'm critiquing deserve that negativity, but the show as a whole doesn't. And the problem is the positives are generally like, yeah, that was good. There's a lot of one-off stuff, like Carol Kane. Carol Kane's scene was great. That was worth talking about. But then all the fundamental problems that don't necessarily ruin the episode, because they're fundamental, they always come up, and they're what you remember. Like, I remember liking most of the Strange New World Season 1 episodes. I don't remember a lot of why. I remember every fundamental problem. It's the opposite of Picard Season 2, where I hated every second of it, but I remember it kind of fondly, because it nailed its fundamentals. I want the episode to spend the whole show trying to understand why it was so right, and not why it was wrong, but this episode was not good, okay at best. I want to talk about why it's good. I think the problem is a lot of the good stuff were just kind of like generically good. I've said this before. When something is good, it's often very hard to go, this is why it's good. There's often not a lot to talk about beyond this was good, unless it was extremely good, like Carol Kane's scene, where I can talk a bit about it. When something is bad, doesn't matter how minimally bad it is, I can always say something like, hey, 2.5 days to get across the quadrant in a shuttle? That's ridiculous. That's the whole comment. It doesn't matter, but I talked about it. That's like a point in the bad. When it's really bad, I talk more about it. The more bad something is, the more you have to say about it. And so reviews very easily bias the bad. And it's something I very much try and fight against. This episode is definitely leaning more bad than I would have hoped. I think there's just... The problem is the start was negative and the mid are negative. And the good is not a lot of standout good. It's just good. It's like, yes, this was a good episode of Star Trek. And even then, a lot of when I'm... Especially with Strange New Worlds, unfortunately. A lot of when I compliment something, there's always a small caveat. Like, this was a very good fight scene... But it was too long. You know, everything about this fight scene was great, but it was too long. There's always some kind of but, I feel, with Strange New Worlds, which is very unfortunate. And as a reviewer, it is something I do struggle with. Did I say someone should die for their stuff? I think you misunderstood something. I definitely did not mean to say someone should die for, like, they've written Strange New Worlds. I don't even know what I've said that might have become like that, but no. Absolutely not. No one should die for having produced Strange New Worlds. Carol Kane persona was a bit gravelly in voice, but I will wait and see how long she is on. I took to it quickly. Like, it wasn't the voice I was expecting at all. I don't know if she's putting something on or she just sounds like that. I know she is older than she looks as well, so she sounds older than I expected from pictures. But I just like, yeah, that's this character's voice now. I took to it pretty quickly. Oh, here's something I did want to see freeze-framed, actually. When they go into the cave, and they were like, oh, that's what they're building. Did anyone else seriously struggle to see what it actually was? Let me mute system output and actually put this on. So yeah, they go the cave. Okay, now knowing what the ship looks like, I can see it. God, I couldn't tell what this was. I was like, are they building a Federation ship? Because I could kind of see the saucer section. I was expecting nacelles to be up, and I thought the ship was going that way, so I had a really hard time actually figuring out what this was. I'm glad they kind of said it, yeah. Oh, you told us you wanted your uncle's cups and you did not use the words. Oh, look, I can't wait to inherit them, but I'm willing to wait. You know, I'm not going to engineer a situation to inherit them. But, you know, when they come up for inheritance, it'll help dull the pain. Side note, as we talk here, Paramount is struggling to stay afloat business-wise. Picard Season 3 finally graced the Nelson's rating. Stranger Worlds has gone there as well, if not well. I actually will take time to address this. I think Picard hit the top 10 streaming for the first time. I thought Prodigy did. I don't remember. Yeah, I'm aware there of murmurings of Paramount's money problems. I expect fewer Star Treks. We've just lost 2. Stranger Worlds is a movie. I'm not sure if we'll go beyond 3 or 4 series.
Paramount, and all I have to say is they better fucking not be going under. They're making the...
It's a streaming service. No streaming service makes money if it's not called Disney Plus, Netflix, or Hulu.
But, like, I want the Knuckles... Like, the Knuckles show that goes with the movie Sonic stuff is supposed to come out, and they're the ones who are doing the Sonic movie stuff.
That's expensive. Well, the thing is...
And I want to see Amy, goddammit.
I am not going to worry about Star Trek until Prodigy gets canceled. That's your red flag, because Prodigy is 2 things. It is animated, and it is geared towards kids, which means that is the first thing that is going to go when they start cutting shows. And so the moment Prodigy unceremoniously ends is when it shields up Red Alert. Like, but nothing is getting canceled until Prodigy. And as Prodigy is still going on, I'm not going to worry. Less Star Trek is okay. I mean, if the Star Trek we have is good quality, yeah, keep Prodigy, keep Lower Decks. I guess we'll just have to see, but so far, yeah, until the day Prodigy gets canceled, which unfortunately, given how long it takes to make, I would not be surprised. I just hope they let the writers wrap things up, because, like, I don't want to leave Chakotay trapped in an alternate future. That's just how that character ends. But yeah, until Prodigy gets canceled, I don't think there's any reason to worry. Well, maybe worry, but nothing's actually going to happen until Prodigy gets canceled. Minor note I noticed as I was scrolling. The Transporter Chief. I saw you somewhere. Transporter Chief. We know it. This person. Is this the same Transporter Chief as Season 1? Because they look like it, but they've changed the voice to something I'm super jealous of now. And so, is that the same one? They look similar. Did they recast someone? Is this supposed to be the same character? But well done. I'm jealous of your voice. You say it's a kid's show that will go first, but if the kids are watching it, maybe it's the last one. Alex.
Huh?
As someone, you're literally drawing something right now. As someone who likes animated stuff, we watch a lot of kids that would be considered kid shows, right?
I like how, you're like, as someone who is literally drawing Sonic fan art at the moment.
Would you say that an animated kid show being popular means that it's not going to be canceled?
So,
I was expecting a hell no, but go on.
The thing with kid shows is, when they first were created, cartoons were originally stop playing. What?
Yeah, your YouTube video's paused, but it's still playing. That's interesting. But yeah, Alex.
Anyways,
okay.
It all depends on how well the merch sells when it comes to animated kids cartoons. Because if the toys sell well, they're going to continue making the show.
You got a point. I can't think of a single piece of Prodigy merch. I'm sure it exists, but no, I bet Alex has just nailed it on the head.
If it doesn't have toys, and it still is going on, it's probably going to continue until the writers of it are satisfied with it. Because that means it's more of a passion project than just a project to make money.
Yeah, but if your studio is losing money and you're a streaming platform, the point is,
if it isn't selling merch or isn't the reason people specifically say they have that streaming service, it's one of the first things that will get sold.
Yep, because
wow, she is right.
People don't like animated. People don't. Well, I say people. Studios don't like animation. Studios don't like kid shows. Prodigy, animated kid show, high budget, takes ages to produce. Your streaming service might have money problems. That is the first thing I thought.
Animated?
3D. It is
3D?
It is incredibly stylized, very expensive, high budget 3D animation.
3D is these days 3D is cheaper to make than 2D depending on the 3D. Like, it would not surprise me if the reason they had 2D, because you have to, depending on the animation style,
it looks like it's painted.
Every frame. That's just rendering. Once you have the models and you have the rendering textures, 3D animation is actually very cheap to do.
We'll see. But
meanwhile, 2D has to be drawn frame by frame.
They wouldn't cut Lower Decks. Lower Decks is too successful. They could cut Prodigy because it's a kid's show. Lower Decks is safe because it's an adult. And popular. Incredibly popular. Prodigy, people who've seen it, love it. It's not popular because it's an animated kid's show.
Yeah. As for, like, you using Sonic as Sonic's a video game first and a cartoon second, so fuck you.
I don't know. They're big now. Video game character. I don't know. We'll see.
This fan art looks dope, though.
But yeah, I'm jealous of the Transporter Chief now. I want to wear Ahura's outfit, which was like the weird skirt thing. I love this totally androgynous Transporter Chief. This is my icon. Are you catching, if you're new here, are you catching some hints? Let's see. Moving forward.
Also, for future reference for chat, while I use any pronouns, I prefer they, them.
Alright. Speaking of pronouns, I'll bring this up now. I don't know if this is the first time it's been Ortega's has been gendered. It's certainly the first time I noticed, but Spock has a line where he says Mr. Ortega's in this scene. So I would imagine that means Mr. Ortega's is a Mr. Ortega's. I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to bring that up because I was like, hang on, have they actually said that before? If it's Star Trek, it is Star Trek if we're asking who is going to buy the toys. Lower Decks is the adults buy more toys. You know what? This is why Paramount really wants an Eagle Moss replacement. Like, I don't know. I feel like the Star Trek merch game isn't too great. You can actually get a lot of uniforms. I've been looking for something, hint, hint. But I feel like the Star Trek merch game isn't too strong. Like, you could get the ships with Eagle Moss, you know, we're in a middle point. You can get a lot of the uniforms really good now. I've seen, who's the one? They've got like cosplay in there. Just Google it. You can find good ones. Well, there's some problems. Like I can get this uniform, but I can't get it with a rank. But I feel like Star Trek has never had a good merch game. You know, interesting, but maybe that's just me. Going on. There's a lot of blood in this episode. Can I actually stream this? I might have to put some,
You're probably safe.
I might have to change the monetization rating on this one, but... I never realized these were guns. And my first reaction was, I don't like this design even more now. But then I thought about it a bit, and I'm like, actually... isn't reason for why there's so much bulk on the engines. I could see you maybe harnessing some nacelle power for some sort of like special gun, and we don't keep it around because it's probably like pretty volatile. Maybe it's explosive, maybe it's just unnecessary. I kind of like it. I like it as an explanation. I think it's done some things. For I'm just realizing this is now a gray D7. That's what they're called, not K7s. Which is good, because I never really liked the green so much. The host of the show told me you were... I did. Actually, I should have said partner. But yeah, Alex will say wife sometimes, so that's what I do.
We use...
Do I really say wife?
I use my... And, like, Nathan will use for me, my assigned, like, quote-unquote, at birth pronouns, and, like, things to reference that as often as we'll use gender-neutral ones. So, like, I will use, like, wife or mom for me and when we're referencing our relationship to our dogs. But we're just as, like, we just as often will just refer to me as, like, partner and...
I feel more hurt that I feel like I've been demoted to host. I'm everything in N squared, but, like, now I'm the host, apparently. I don't know, it feels like a demotion. I did take a demotion. I think I'm a lieutenant now, a commander. I couldn't hear, but I'm glad it's not the pips, because that would go against canon. But God, I miss the pip system. It's so much better. So much better. It's special. We were talking about Picard. We're talking about Picard? I don't even remember why. What were we talking about Picard for? What were we talking about Picard? I don't know. We'll just move past Picard. Picard's done. We don't have... Screw Picard. They dropped their finale. Everyone loves that finale. And even when I went on Buffer Time, I'm like, that was an amazing 9 episodes. And, like, an awful finale to a completely separate episode of 9 episodes we haven't seen. Like, and everyone loves it, and I can't understand why. This scene, I like how Spock goes to, like, rush to chapel, whatever. We've talked about that before. Is the implication that the transporter chief is just kind of sitting there watching Mbenga die on the floor? Because he never does anything about this situation. He's like, Spock's got it. I don't need to do anything. I got a great voice, nice hair. I can see why you'd say Ethan Peck is more handsome, but... Look at this guy. Oh, this is beautiful. I think he's in the Warp Core set. Or maybe it's a Discovery interior set. I don't know. But God, I talked so much about this in my trailer analysis. I love this look. That's a Klingon right there. That's a TOS Klingon right there. You've done it. You've only gone and bloody done it. Yeah, I'm happy with the Klingons, how I've seen before. I don't like that, like, my least favorite Klingon was the one that came up with, like, the 2 vocal cord thing. I mean, maybe I can use that as citation that Worf doesn't have 2 dicks if, like, all these other Klingons don't have 2 vocal cords. Whoops, my mic fell over. But, yeah, I mean, we've inherited the world of Discovery. Whoops, my mic fell over again. Where, yeah. I mean, this is the world that we've got from Strange New Worlds. I think this is even the world I explained in my, theory video. But moving on. Yeah, most of this was pretty good. I had an interesting reaction here where, I'm just gonna... Yeah, I'm gonna let it go forward a bit till the scene I want. I got so excited here on this map zoom in, so I'm like, oh my god, the green border, you got the Klingon, the Federation, the Romulans. We're getting some Romulan stuff. That could be interesting. Like, it could be, you better not show me a Romulan, but I'm really interested to see some Romulan conflicts in this series. Oh, I've lost all interest entirely right now. I don't like the Gorn. Dang it! Look, it's not my fault if the series centers it around a lot of the stuff I don't like. I remember reading an article months ago, God, ages ago, where it was an article of, where Anson Mount, it was like him sitting on the chair in the dark bridge in a dark jacket, holding a big phaser rifle, like looking all grumpy. And the caption was like, Strange New Worlds going for a more darker tone in season 2. I was like, why? The best parts about Strange New Worlds were its lighter tones. I don't really like how a lot of them... It's not even a lot of the shows. Like, most of the modern seasons are not about war. But I wish it wasn't coming up so much. Like, I don't know. It feels like you're gonna do weird things to the arena. Even more weird things than you've already done. I already don't have interest in the Gorn. I think you've turned them into, like, literally raving animals that don't make a lot of sense. Like, I guess it's kind of what I was expecting. I talked a lot in season 1. It felt like we were going towards an arc where eventually the crew would learn to maybe sympathize with the Gorn. We'd learn they're not literally raving, mindless animals. But, like, we might not even do a war. This might be a season about averting a war, but we've just had Discovery not 5 years ago that did the Klingon War. And this is the same era. It's a pretty similar... It's like a warrior culture. It just feels too similar too soon to me. I'm not looking forward... I mean, I was kind of interested in what you could do with Romulans. We haven't explored TOS Romulans before. If you can keep up... Hang on. In Balance of Terror, had no one seen a Romulan in 100 years? Like, literally, they hadn't done anything. So never mind. A Romulan war might not have worked. But, if you could somehow maintain the canon, it could have been an interesting thing to explore. I have no interest in the Gorn. I mean, that's a personal problem. It's not like a technical fault. You could say I have no interest in the Gorn because of what Strange New Worlds has presented previously. That's true. But, I'm hoping we minimize the Gorn stuff. Like, we do an early Doctor Who. We kind of reference it in a few episodes. In the finale, we deal with it. That's it. No more Gorn. I don't know. Prodigy is doing well for Paramount Plus. More of a diverse audience between young children, parents, teenagers, Star Trek fans. I know it is a gateway to Trek with some ass. That is all true. Does not change the fact that the pool of people that of that diverse audience is smaller. It's just a fact. Animated shows don't, on average, they don't perform as well as live action because
they're made specifically to sell merch.
No, because they're specifically because they're animated. For some reason, a lot of people just will not give animated a try. Even more people will hear the words kid shows and bounce off. I think especially...
Because they're fools!
No, I think especially if you grew up before, like, the middle of Adventure Time, which pretty much exactly me and younger. If you grew up before cartoons would get really good and be written for like those all audiences, be written like Prodigy, Steven Universe, late Adventure Time. Not to say that they literally didn't exist before Adventure Time, but I think there are a lot more of them starting after Adventure Time, going into Steven Universe.
Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls.
That kind of stuff.
Owl House. Yeah.
Set up the like future of cartoons because it lets cartoons be made for kids primarily, but still have that maturity to it.
If you're before that, if you grew up before that and you didn't have a kid during that, your idea of what a kid's show is, or rather could be, is not going to match with what they actually are. Like, there are some good ones, like Phineas and Ferb is enjoyable for an adult. Like, my mom liked watching it with us. Some adults like watching SpongeBob, but they're not the horrors of war. They're not dealing with incredibly adult topics, and they're not doing them intelligently. Well, it's not to say they're dumb shows, but they're not having those kind of conversations.
They're dumbing it down because they don't think their audience can handle it. Meanwhile, I don't think Steven Universe dumbed down a single thing.
Or they're just flat out avoiding it. Could you imagine SpongeBob doing an episode on the after effects of, like, a intergalactic war? Like, no, I couldn't. But, and it's unfortunate. But the bias does exist. And so the pool for those shows is always going to be smaller.
How do you explain that Rose is a refugee come from outer space?
You think
Castle.
SpongeBob would ever have a refugee, period? SpongeBob is never going to say the word refugee. Like,
Steven Universe did in the first episode.
But here's the thing. If SpongeBob has changed with the times, it absolutely would. Because why wouldn't you? Like, that's just a pointless stigma, basically. Like, even me, having watched a lot of these shows like Prodigy and Steven Universe, that will deal with these topics very well, better than a lot of live action stuff I've seen, I still have that thing that a lot of shows just wouldn't do it. And it really is a shame, but I think it's true. That the prejudice exists. And even if it doesn't exist in the people, I think we've seen with like all the animation purges and stuff, it exists to the people who make the shows. Let me skim. And you still say, who cares about Picard? No, I like Picard. That was a joke. We're moving on. No, I like Picard. I didn't like season 2. It did its cores very well, and everything else was bad. My memory of season 1 is hazy, but I liked a lot of what it did. Some stuff I didn't like, but generally the stuff it did with the universe, I liked. It was, like, at worst, a serviceable plot, as I recall. It was pretty good. I loved the first 9 episodes of season 3, and then the last one just dropped it for me. But yeah, no, we're moving. This is Strange New Worlds. We don't care about Picard right now. We care about Picard on the Picard streams. Transport Chief was Kyle Kirk until he died. When did he die? I forgot that. I tried watching some of the early episodes. I watched episode 1 yesterday, 2 days ago, and I just never went on. I don't know. I had other stuff I wanted to do. But I think we're coming up. Oh, I've never actually made it to the end of the credits. I didn't know there was a... dang it. No, Picard. I've told you. We don't care about Picard. This is the Strange New Worlds team. Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah, I didn't know there was a secret hideout at the logo. I've literally never made it to the end of the credits. You're one of the whack jobs that liked season 2. Don't worry, Del. There's a lot of you. I think a lot of people like season 2. But I find it weird. I think most people liked season 2 more than season 1. I know when I have an unpopular opinion, but I still have it. It just I don't know. I'd love to kind of talk with someone. Maybe I should find someone, like if there's a YouTuber who loved like season 2 of Discovery or season 2 of Picard, and if I can do something, maybe even watch them live or do a talk where like I absolutely hate this, and I think it fails fundamentally on every episode, every level. You love this. Let's accept that, because I want to understand why you love this. And like that'd be a very interesting conversation to have. And there's a few things like that where like the level of disagreement is so huge and the degree of disagreement is so big that I don't even care that I disagree with someone. I just want to understand why. And then we can get into the kind of like, because like ideally maybe they convince me, be like, oh, actually you're right, this isn't as bad as I thought. Maybe you'd even convince me that's good. I'd love to love all of Star Trek. But I might try and poke around and see if I can find someone who loved Discovery Season 2 and who wants to, like, have an intelligent discussion about what about this works. Because, like, at some level, if we keep doing that, we'd get down to some fundamental level of either just opinion, I don't like this, you do. You like fight scenes, I don't like fight scenes, that's why we have different opinions on the fight scene. Or some, like, actual technical flaw. They're like, did you not see it? Did I not see the reason this worked? Is this some technical flaw? We have different levels. It'd be fascinating. I'm kind of fascinated in how it, like, the technical level, there could be such differing opinions. Wait, how did they gender Ortega's? It is, I believe, somewhere around here. It might actually be here. Hang on. Spock says, Mr. Ortega's, can you do something? Let me see if I can find it. And he knows that... I'm not sure if it's a scene. She's getting a male haircut later in the season. Ortega's? Wait, did he... Oh, shoot. Oh, I think it's Mr. Ortega's fire. That's what it is. Let me get it. I'll stream that line if I can. There's a look. Come on. Mr. Ortega's fire. Where is it? No, it's not that. I don't know. It's somewhere in that final battle. If you watch it, he goes, Mr. Ortega's, do something. I don't know. Mr. Ortega's, here's your order. What's a male haircut? It's someone who knows about hair could probably define it. It's one of those things where I could go, this is a male haircut, this isn't. Mbanga's is more a male haircut. I mean, it's a haircut that is generally only worn by men, and because it is only worn by men, looks more masculine. This is an example of a masculine haircut. Carol Kane's or Chapel's. Chapel's is slightly androgynous, but more feminine. It is like entirely, that'd probably be a feminine one. That's entirely, God, what are the words I'm looking for? It's entirely culture, preconceptions, biases. Like, there's nothing actually inherent about a male or a female haircut. But they invoked male and femaleness because they invoke male and femaleness. It's very circular. Androgynous haircuts would be ones that work on either. That generally can be worn by, they're socially acceptable to be worn by men and women. And non-binary haircuts are ones like the Transporter Chief that just make you question. And they're the ones I'm jealous of and that I now have after I've showered. It's, come on, Transporter Chief. Dang it. Nurse Chapel's slightly androgynous. There are loads of different haircuts, though. There are probably haircuts, if I were to say a lesbian haircut, that probably puts an image in your head, but, like, why does it put an image in your head? I don't know, it just does, but it's one of those weird cultural things. There's no right or wrong, this is Star Trek. Oh yeah, I'm actually curious, are there pictures of Ortega's new haircut? Star Trek it's weird to get a haircut mid-season. New hair. I'm only seeing all the ones that they currently have. Oh wait, is that the hair they currently have? Hang on, Ortega's. I was gonna wrap it up, but this is vitally important that we answer this question for some reason. No, I'm just curious. Ortega's. No, they've got this is their new hair, I think. Like, it's not as long on the sides as it used to be. You've got this stuff. I don't know. I'll keep a lookout. Yeah, there's a lot of good. Different styles, different haircuts, different forms of representation. Modern Star Trek as a whole has been very good. This episode in particular, I noticed it, about just having all kinds of different people on the ships. Very human-focused, which I guess is technically kind of matches with what we see for the era. That's a little more unfortunate, but, I mean, that's just modern television a lot nowadays. It's not particularly noteworthy, but it's still nice to see it done so casually. Yeah. And I think that's probably the best thing Alex Kurtzman does as showrunner, is he's always been very good at that. It's a scene in the promos before airing. I'll keep an eye out for it. There was no this season on Strange New Worlds either. There was I loved a previous last season on Strange New Worlds that opened with things from Discovery. That was fun. Missed your show today due to work. We'll watch later. Thank you, David C. I'm glad I didn't end the stream 10 minutes ago. Nice to see you. But I was about to go through, actually, the notes that I didn't get to from what I watched. Thank you for the $20. I should actually be getting paid those now because I've set up Google AdSense. Don't worry, I didn't lose what you gave before. They have it. They just... yeah, I don't get write a check until I fill some stuff out. Cross Squadron. Oh, this was a little thing that irked me. There's the scene in kind of the foresty bits where M'Benga goes 100 million Federation bodies, and for what? Like a sector or something? That's the kind of line that just... God, I hate those lines. Because he said 100 million Federation bodies. He took that war and when all those Klingon lives do not matter. They are not worth mentioning or mourning over in the slightest. Like, where's Beverly when you need her? Like, every other Starfleet doctor has always been the, like, God damn it, I'm a doctor. This person is sick. This is literally Hitler. This is literally a planet full of clones of Hitler, and they're all sick, but by God, I'm gonna cure them. That's like what the Federation doctors always do, and it just really hit me. And like, one of those tiny ways, like, no, you're a Federation doctor. It should be 200 million bodies on, like, both sides. And I thought maybe they'd get into that. They might get into that this season. Like, if M'Benga has some reason to really hate the Klingons, which he looks like he does, it would make it a bit better from, like, a narrative perspective. I thought they were maybe going to go into, like, some of that. In the war, M'Benga has treated Klingons because he didn't care. You were Federation, you were Klingon, he was going to cure you anyway. But I wouldn't call it sloppy writing. I would call... What I honestly think it is it was a writer who lives in the here and now and didn't even realize that the line is problematic. That's what I would think. But it's a small thing, but it's one of those things that personally always gets me. I loved... I'm actually going to Google. Ignore that beeping. That was me. We don't know what it is, but it just happens. It's actually getting more frequent. It's a little unnerving. Hang on. Morse 2. I should try... Am I still live? Google's slow. Morse code 2. Yeah, I'm still live. Yes, that's not a thing. As soon as Uhura said they sent the code in Morse 2, I laughed because that is so clearly... They wanted Morse code, but they didn't want to have to bother looking up Morse code and encoding a message, so they did random beeps so that they didn't actually have to make it correct. I loved that. God, it was like... I loved it. It's just such a line of, we don't want to do this correctly. Screw it. It's Morse 2. And I'd love it even more if that was correct Morse code. I don't know Morse code. I know SOS and E, because E is a dot. Oh no, I know V. It's bum 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 bum. That's not a joke, by the way. V in Morse code is the notes of Beethoven's Fifth, because 5 in Roman numerals is V. So V in Morse code is ... dash, which is beautiful. Del, it feels like the Gorn are the Strange New World version of the Klingons, or what the Ferengi were supposed to be. Yes, but that's one of the reasons I don't like it, is Discovery was a 23rd century show 5 years ago that had the Klingon War. And this is a 23rd century show that had the Klingon stand-in war. There are other reasons, like if I liked the Gorn more, if I felt them more compelling, I'd probably be more engaged, but whatever. The Simpsons were very subversive when it was on the Tracy Ullman show. How did we get to The Simpsons? Found the promo. Oh, cool. I don't actually know if you can send a link in chat. I think you can send a link in chat because I tend to give you permissions until you abuse them. But we'll see. Yeah, Gallo, same Fox Grand. Oh, here's something this episode did that I liked. Here's building off of canon. I'd love to get the frame. But the look Spock does when he gives the order to open fire, I'd love to say this with the frame actually on screen. But, this Spock that goes through this episode that... Come on, Spock. It's right there. It's right around... Hang on. No, I'm getting there. This Spock... Give it a few seconds. The voice waving 5-0 torpedoes. This Spock is the Spock that's going to invent the Kobayashi Maru. Like, what these prequels should do is now when I watch... Because someone call me out if I'm wrong here. I'm pretty sure Spock actually did create the Kobayashi Maru. Or at least he introduced it. But when I watch, like, The Wrath of Khan, and I see the thing where Spock goes to the Kobayashi Maru, where there's a no-win scenario where you either have to sacrifice the civilian freighter or risk war with the Klingons. This man wrote that scenario and made sure every cadet had to go through it. Like, wonderful. This is, this was amazing. No, I'm not even going to put a conditional here. This was wonderful. Next to Carol Kane, this might be the highlight of the episode. I love things in these prequels, or even in the sequels, where, like, you reveal new information, where you it makes you go, like, oh, this happened to the character, and now I understand, like, one of these other things that already worked. It better. It adds new layers. It's just that, oh, moment. And that's the key. The earlier thing has to have stood on its own. I think a lot of shows get this wrong, where I say it a lot. You have to make the first watch through enjoyable. If you're going to write a story where it doesn't make sense until the end reveal, great. There are a lot of great stories like that. But you have to make that first watch through also enjoyable. Otherwise, you're going to watch something and go, this sucks. You're going to get to the end and go, oh, I guess it does make sense now. I wish I knew that earlier. You're never going to have a moment of, oh, yeah, that's so good, that's so clever. You need to be enjoying it before you can have that so clever moment. And so, yes, this was amazingly done. I don't even know if they meant it. They probably didn't even think of it. But I don't know. I connected with that a lot. Highlight of the episode. Del, I am way before all these shows. I've heard of them, but I've only watched a few. Oh, the cartoons, yeah. Gravity Falls was pretty good. I did all the puzzles. I never finished Gravity Falls. I remember, I think I watched all the episodes, and then is it only 2 seasons? Because there was a big thing with, like, it ended, and it was like, Gravity Falls will return, yada yada. And I never went back to it. I should pick it up. It's Disney. I should really pick it up while it's still in print, if it still has physical media. There are a lot of Dells. That's just frightening. Yeah, no, I think, though, after I get a drink, hour 44, I'm not surprised. I guess when you fill your episode with 15 minutes of vocalist fight scene, there's not a whole lot to talk about. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of reactions coming off of this, honestly, which was a little disappointing, especially as a reviewer. Like, the worst thing for a reviewer is walking away going, oh, that was... I don't have anything to say about that. I will say, I liked the introduction of Spock's little loot thing, how they did that. If we ignore the context of his emotional barriers falling down and how that affects TOS, I really like that. I even like that he used, I think he explicitly says this, he uses his music to help deal with his emotions. I like that. I do find it funny that M'Benga seems to just have had that lying around, like, in his office at all times, just so he could hand it to Spock. But yeah, see, this is what I need to avoid. That's not a serious complaint. I hope people realize that's not a serious complaint of the episode, but I need to avoid putting buts at the end of all my compliments. Yeah, I mean... There's nothing wrong with a run-of-the-mill episode of Star Trek. I understand why they did a more run-of-the-mill instead of going straight into Una's trial, which I assume is next week. Hopefully that's good. Court cases can be made or broken on the arguments. And there's a lot of episodes with bad arguments in Star Trek. Or it's like sci-fi in general. Measure of a Man is like probably peak example of like... Everyone loves Measure of a Man, but nobody loves the actual arguments that are made. It's, I don't know, it's funny. But yeah, I look forward. Do we actually know it's Una's Trials next week? We usually do. Let me check. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Memory Alpha. The specific part Season 2, Discovery, I can only really jive with starting Season 3. I would recommend starting Season 3 if everyone wasn't going through some arc that's pretty important to, like, kind of have the context of 1 and 2. I think I say this in my watch order guide as well, that, like, you really should try and get to Season 3, even if you hate the first 2, but I really don't think you should skip if you can avoid it. Ad Astra per Astra. That's the name that I should always remember what it means. I can never remember what it means. God dang it. Into space. Fucking... Hang on. Ad Astra per Astra. Meaning. A rough road leads to the stars. Oh, that's gonna be the court case, I think. But yeah, I look forward to it. Should be interesting. A proper genetic engineering court case. Or maybe that's a 2-parter. Because Pike's got to go get the lawyer. Would it be someone we know? Because we haven't talked about it? Or is it just a tease? They said she. And there aren't a lot of women in Star Trek. And there aren't a lot of attorneys in TOS. In TOS. There aren't a lot of women in TOS. There aren't a lot of attorneys in TOS. And I don't think there's any overlap between the two groups in TOS. Probably just a tease. But yeah, I look forward to next episode. That's the good thing about episodic television, is I can throw the Gorn War I'm not looking forward to aside and do something different next episode. You know, with episodic television, there'll be ups and downs. I don't think this was a low, but I don't think this was an up. Just, it would have been a good base, but it had some of this stuff in between that just didn't do it for me. But alright, not a bad start. So I think then, no, we don't know her. How do you know, Carlos? Could be Tuvok. You don't know. Could be. Everyone would riot, but it could be Tuvok. It could be Kirk's wife. What's her face? Carol? Problem is, I want to say Carol
Kirk has
Kane.
a wife?
No, but he has a mother of his son. Do you remember Kirk's son? He was in the movies. He died. Some Klingons killed him. He was like, "You Klingon bastards, you killed my son."
No.
Well, that's okay. He wasn't really important anyway. It's a she. Look, Tuvok could have been a woman in this century. I know he wasn't born. I'm just saying. It's not going to be Tuvok, but it could be Tuvok. Uhura had a non-binary haircut, possibly even male, going by the... Like, it's all complicated. It also probably depends on how you wear yourself.
Gender's a social construct.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. My cat ear gamer girl headphones probably, like, shove my hair one way. If I wore, like, black monster truck dinosaur headphones, it might push it a little different way, you know? But yeah, without further ado then, Prodigy 94% Rotten Tomatoes, 7.5 times 3. We know it's good. I'm saying it's not popular, at least compared to like a live action show would be. You know, if 10 people watched it and 94% of those 10 people loved it, you'd still have 94%. Don't question that 4%, just accept it. But yeah, I think then, did I call a person it? No, I called a haircut it. Some folks had 6-episode previews and some things got spoiled. Keep that away from me. Let's keep anything that hasn't aired. Let's keep that away. Let's not put those in live chats. You can put them in like the comments, YouTube comments with like a spoiler, then hit enter a bunch of times so it's hidden. But yes, let's keep things that haven't aired out of the way just for people who haven't seen them. Which includes me. But yes, I think then I am rambling, so I will wrap things up. It's nice to have an audience again, even if a lot of us weren't particularly on board with this episode. But yeah, thank you for watching. And I will see you next time. Boop.